You know, it's been 100 days since Rudy Gobert's positive test changed everything in the entire sports world. Well, coming up, Brian Windhorst on the threat in the next week that could potentially burst the NBA's bubble. But here is what Mark Cuban had to say.
When you have a controlled environment, or as controlled as you possibly can get it, I think we're trying to emulate what we do in our homes, where we feel safer, where, people are getting tested, people are being monitored when they come into the environment. There's continuous information, every precaution that possibly can be taken. That's exactly what we'll do.
All right, so they're doing all they can. Let's bring in now NBA reporter Brian Windhorst. Windy, what is the current level of concern regarding the coronavirus and its threat to the restart of the NBA season?
Well, if you just are watching the daily numbers in Orlando, it is very concerning. And while the NBA is going to have a quarantined campus there, hundreds of people are going to be living outside that quarantine and coming in, and they're going to do everything they can to, contain and monitor those people, but it's still a serious concern. And then, Ryan, I think you just have to know that right now NBA players are getting tested. They all have to be tested if they're coming back by next Tuesday. If you look around at what's happening in other sports, if you look at the college athletes, if you look at the NFL teams, if you look at now 5 MLS teams have reported that players have tested positive. Players are going to start testing positive, or staff members, almost certainly by next week. And the protocol that the NBA has put out means that if you have a positive test, whether you're showing symptoms or not, you have to be sidelined to make sure you're okay for 14 days with no exercise. So, the NBA really is okay with these tests coming back positive. They want to identify who is sick. They want to get them treatment. They want to make sure the virus doesn't get into Orlando. But this is a fight that's happening on all sides. And for everything that else is going on, remember, the virus is the #1 enemy, and the virus is serious, especially in Orlando.
Brian, I think all the leagues are now coming around to this idea that there might be positive tests if we come back. But I have to ask this question, and I don't want to look at it negatively, but you have to in where we are today. What will it take for the NBA in terms of the number of positive tests to consider putting the resumption of the season on hold?
Ryan, the protocol the NBA put out is 108 pages long. There's thousands of words. It represents thousands of hours of work by doctors, epidemiologists, lawyers, and the like. It is not spelled out in any of that. The answer to that is they don't know. They're just going to see how it goes, and they're going to do their best, and we're all hoping it's going to work.
And I know the players, many of them, they want to come back. They want to get back on the court. But is there concern, especially with what you're describing, what's going on in other sports, what doctors are saying? Is there concern among players at this point? What's the level of that concern about coming back?
I think that varies highly. Certainly my feel in talking to folks around the league is there's a tremendous amount of enthusiasm from the players to get back to playing. Not only to resume their chance to chase a championship, because a lot of teams feel like this restart opens the field up, but just to get playing basketball with their teammates again, which is something they haven't been able to do. But if you've been following on social media, there's a lot of players out there already playing in open runs with be it amateur players or other pros all across the country. They want to play. They're excited about this. Everybody's just hoping that when these test results come back and the numbers keep coming in Orlando, it doesn't cause any sort of hiccup.
Okay, and we know that some players can opt out of being in the bubble if they don't want to play, if they're concerned about some of those risks. I wonder, what's the possibility of players not being allowed to play, or even to take it further? Why don't we look at it this way? What happens if a player says, I want to opt out? Does that put them in a worse position than they would have been in, and how?
Well, if a player opts out and he doesn't have a reason that's excused, essentially an injury or a pre-existing condition, he doesn't get paid, which is complicated, but the NBA is allowing for that. But there also is, as you mentioned, another thing here. All players' medical records are going to be reviewed by a panel. And it's possible that, and this is more for coaches because they're older and a little bit more susceptible, but it's possible some players could be excused or told that they shouldn't play because of high-risk conditions. Now, nobody knows for sure whether that's going to happen. That process is undergoing right now, but that is also in that protocol. The players have an appeals process if that happens, but it's going to be interesting to see. Other leagues have said that people with moderate to severe asthma are deemed high risk. There's a number of NBA players who have asthma. and it's going to depend on what those doctors see in their treatment to see whether that's going to be an issue.
You know, I could see that having a tremendous impact on how far teams go. If you talk about certain coaches not being there, if you talk about certain players not being there. So I wonder, even though you say there's enthusiasm about players coming back, I wonder in practice, in practice of the season, I wonder if players will start to say, hey, we're waiting a week or two for our star to come back because of these protocols, but at the same time, we need them on the court right now.
Yeah, this is all so uncharted, especially because so many NBA players tested positive without serious conditions. They were asymptomatic. And I'm going to tell you that if people start testing positive and they're told, listen, you can't even run on the treadmill for 14 days and you may be out for 3 weeks, that could be an issue. So we'll see how that all plays out in the coming days.